Hi, I'm Sasha. I'm a polyglot and I love languages. In my previous video, I talked about the importance of motivation for language learning, and now I want to talk about what's next. Because motivation is crucial, it helps us start off, it fuels the language learning process, but motivation fades away with the time. While language learning is something very long term, you need consistent efforts for months or maybe even years. So it sounds contradictory, doesn't it? Well, not really. In this video, I'm going to explain how to solve this contradiction and how to use your motivation that you still have at the beginning to make your language learning optimal, and if you're successful in this effort, it's even automatic when you don't have motivation anymore. So let's begin with what you should not do while you're motivated. We've probably all been there, this time when you are just starting to learn a new language and you're super motivated because you have a trip coming up to a country of this language, or you are very excited to finally be able to watch movies in the original, or for some other reason. There's a tendency to overplan, to be too ambitious when motivation is at its peak. And it's a very dangerous tendency because when you're motivated, it's really easy to study for hours every single day. But once motivation starts fading away, it gets harder and harder to keep up with this pace. So the mistake that a lot of people make is making a super ambitious plan in the beginning, fueled by a strong motivation that is not realistic, that is not sustainable in long term. I'm going to talk about what kind of plan exactly you need to make and how to do it in detail a little bit later. Mistake number two, that is also pretty common among language learners, is doing a lot of random stuff when you're just starting off. What I mean is using a lot of different materials, different resources, buying several textbooks, using several apps, signing up for different online courses, etc. While you're motivated, it's okay, and also it's completely normal to try out different resources to find the best one, the one that works for you. But once you find it, you should really stick to it, because later on, when your motivation weakens, it will be so much harder to keep studying when you don't have the major resource or the major textbook that you're using most of the time. Because our brain is super lazy, and when you have a big choice before you start actually studying, you need to decide, oh, do I want to go with this textbook or with the other one? Do I want to open this app or the other one? Because it takes a lot of energy to actually make a decision, even if it's a simple one, it's just harder to start in general. So in the beginning, while your motivation is peaking, don't disperse your energy onto different kinds of materials. So these, I think, are the main mistakes caused by a very strong motivation. And now let's talk about what you actually should do when you're still motivated and you have a lot of energy and this excitement that makes you more ambitious and more productive. So the way I see it is, your plan should not be goals based, but habits based instead. You can have goals, but it is better to decompose them and see what smaller steps you can do on a regular basis, every day or every week, depending on how much time you have. We often underestimate small steps and small contributions because we tend to think that, oh, if I just have half an hour, I'm not going to even sit down at my desk and try to study because it's such a small amount of time. I won't be able to accomplish anything. So it's not even worth starting. But even if you have 10 minutes a day, if you do sit down and study for 10 minutes for 6 days in a week, it sums up to an hour. In an hour, it's already a pretty significant amount of time. So when you're super motivated, you tend to study a lot and do a lot and also plan a lot, as I mentioned earlier. But you can use this productivity to help you establish the language learning routine that you can actually keep up with. So one thing that I mentioned already is to choose one or a couple of resources that you will stick to. But what are language habits? These are habits of studying your target language or doing some kind of language related activity with a certain regularity and consistency. For example, it can be reading a couple pages of a book, or listening to one episode of a podcast, or maybe practicing pronunciation for 10 minutes. It can be whatever, but it has to be a very particular action that you can accomplish in a limited amount of time. It can be 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, depending on how much time you have. So I think it's most efficient to link my language habits to other kinds of habits that I already have incorporated in my daily life. What you do is you just link your new habit to an existing habit, an action that you already do regularly. You can also link it to a place or a person. For example, every morning after I wake up, I go brush my teeth, do makeup, make breakfast, and these are things that I do every day, always or almost always. And I just added a habit of listening to a podcast in my target language while I'm doing all these things, because this time is wasted anyway on thinking about something. So why not spend it practicing listening in my target language? What you can also do is link your language learning to a place. For example, every evening when you come back from work and you sit down at your armchair and you start thinking about watching a series, maybe watch a video in your target language instead. So then you will have this mental connection between the armchair and studying your language. You can also link it to a person. For example, if you have a friend who is also learning the same language, you can practice together, and every time you meet, you can exchange at least a couple of sentences in this language. Or you can even replace habits. For example, you have a habit that you don't really like going on Instagram every single moment that you have a free minute. So what you can do is set a notification or just trying to be conscious about it, and every time you open the app and start scrolling, remind yourself that you have this goal. So you close the Instagram app and you go and open another app to, for example, memorize words or practice pronunciation or read something in your target language. It can be whatever, it doesn't matter. I think it's easier if it's a similar action. So if the habit that you don't like is on your phone, the new one should also be something that you do on your phone, then it will be easier to switch to this new habit. Another thing that is tangentially related to habits and also really helpful with language learning is teaching your algorithms. For example, you can switch your Instagram and YouTube languages to your target language and search for accounts or videos or any other type of content in this language and consume it, watch it, read it, etc. And then at some point, algorithm will understand that, oh, this is the type of content that you like, and it will start suggesting you more and more content in this language. So even if you do want to procrastinate, you will inevitably end up practicing your language. Or maybe it will just remind you that you should go and study. Honestly, it can be anything. What makes it easier is that you already have a hook, something that you do anyway, you do already, and then you link your language learning activity to that activity or a place or a person. And then it's much easier to acquire this new habit, to keep doing it regularly. Obviously, it will take some time for you to acquire these habits, to make them something that you do without thinking, without hesitating. In the beginning, it's really hard because, again, our brain is lazy and it always wants to conserve energy. So we have to consciously remind ourselves why we are doing it in the beginning. And then after some time, it will just get pretty much automatic. So at some point, this new action will become a habit and you will do it more or less automatically. You will have trained your algorithm to suggest you more content in your language. So even when you lose your motivation, if you have this routine set up with these little steps being consistent and regular, you can keep studying as efficiently. Let me know in the comments if this was helpful, and thanks for watching.